Of course, the very day I upload my live update, full of optimism and hope, I dropped to Platinum 2. I expected this would happen, but I figured it'd be right away after getting to Diamond, not 10 days after. Regardless, I'm not a quitter, and I still have 10 days left. I'm wary of team-based queues as the end of a ranked season nears. It makes the tilt feel palpable in the air, as many people want to do a last push for the goals they set themselves. And so everything that doesn't go their way sets them off. I decided long ago that I didn't want to engage with end-of-season ranked anymore, but here we are. I'll make an exception. I think figuring out stuff yourself is really fun, and it's more interesting to develop my playstyle on my own and document that. But as part of the last push, I will let go of this limitation of trying to figure out stuff by myself and just let myself watch any content about Overwatch. So I went back to Awkward's videos. He has an 8-hour video where he gets to GM as Genji, and this time I didn't just watch 2 matches of it. I watched multiple hours. I think this was very valuable. I'll go into this in just a little bit. The whole theme I want to go for is to show that I'm no one special, but go through a process of learning and share with you how I did it on a relatable level. I missed a beat recording my first matches as I started playing Overwatch again and placed Gold 3, because it would have shown just how badly I was playing. Regardless, I want to try out formats to this theme, so instead of just making this a little update video like the other videos, I want to loop back to some questions I posted in my announcement. I want these quote-unquote answers to be under the context of reaching Master Rank, which I haven't succeeded at yet. But let's say by my estimations, these things would help me reach Master Rank without time constraints. And of course, any assertions I make here for sure help me reach Diamond. First question. Team comps. When are they good and bad? Team synergy over countering enemies? Team comps are greatly important in Overwatch, but I feel like I was biased from a background where your strategical choices are typically quite locked in, where switching is impossible or has a cost. Perks do exist, but it's still usually far outweighed by character matchups. And by what I think I understand now, that's how it always has been and always will be. And that's the most important too, for my level at least. To explicitly state it, at my level, your team comp is not that important, and I think this goes for Master Rank too still. Team synergy is extremely potent, but it'll rarely play out that well with random teams. Even if you jumble together a perfect team comp, you're not going to be coordinated, and the fewest players will be able to recognize which part of your comp needs to change and adjust. The conclusion I draw from this is that knowledge of team comps is not as important. Knowing how to play your characters to support a wide variety of team comps is the most important thing. Let me give an example for Genji. If my team is poke heavy, I can play Genji as a distraction. I try to make them turn around as much as possible so that my team can do what they do best. If I'm with a brawl heavy comp, I can challenge targets on high ground to a certain extent. If the enemy team are all camped up on high ground, this usually becomes difficult, but around my skill level, you can sometimes annoy enemies enough so that they'll give up their high ground to chase you. It is a risky game to play though, but once you've gotten them off high ground, your brawl comp can do what it does best. If we are dive, Genji of course thrives. I poke and wait for any target to be out of position or initiated on, and dash in to contribute as much chip damage as possible. Second question, how do I tell what went wrong, specifically for replay watching? It's difficult to tell, because there's so many things that can go wrong. There's you, who can make mechanical and strategical mistakes, including your hero pick. But worse than that, there's 5 enemies that can just outplay your perfect decision, and 4 allies that can also make any of the mistakes you could commit. I told myself it's important to understand this. Not because I need to understand who to blame. But then our Reinhardt decides to go here. Why? Right? But to better contextualize my own play. If I perfectly understood every fight, I could diagnose with certainty if and what I did wrong. But that's way too complicated for my level. I've generally simplified it a lot. I start a replay, and if there was ever a point in the game where I thought, what am I supposed to do? I pause at that spot and think what I could have done. With perfect information. That is, enemy cooldowns, ults, and enemy positions. You may think it's pointless to do this, but this is information that you can observe, hear, and with experience intuit. For a character like Genji, it also helps to check out the environment for all the different angles you could have taken. Other than that, it's quite simple actually. Just fast forward through the replay, and as soon as a fight that didn't play out in your team's favor starts, or an enemy gets a pick on you or an ally, pause. And check what you were doing during that time. Were you overextended and died? Were you underextended, not doing anything, giving the enemy the space to get a pick on your team? Were you out of position and walked for 5 seconds as tanks were blowing cooldowns on one another? Every game is so different, so you can't expect to take a definitive gotcha out of this process. But I managed to find some repeating patterns behind my misplays. It's just something you have to believe will help you consciously, or maybe subconsciously, recognize patterns in the future. There's also other things you can consider. Put yourself in the enemy's shoes by viewing from their perspective. How oppressive were you to them? How do you look like from their perspective? Do you look like an easy target to yourself? You can also view fights that went in your favor, specifically when you get good limbs, and try to see the difference of your actions and positions leading up to it and during it. For the last sort of question, I mentioned I watched Awkward's take on Genji gameplay more thoroughly now to help my last push for Master Rank. Maybe I sabotaged myself, only watching 2 matches as he started it out in gold. It gave me a wrong impression on how people are going to react, which is to say they sometimes do not even in the earlier games of his series. I try to replicate this in low diamond and then be surprised they all turn around and I need to be proactive and prepared to deflect. The early matches also didn't give me more insights on the importance of poking before flanking. Making them acknowledge you in one place right before the fight starts and then moving to their flank. Moving a lot in general. This kind of comes back to the questions of how pressure works. I often wondered why they all were looking at me instantly every time as I peek from the same angle for the 7th time. These insights may seem obvious to you, but it just goes to show how unprepared I was. The gap between Master Rank and the real Overwatch Elite is massive, so it isn't that special to someone who is really into Overwatch and FPS games. But I'm neither. I'm happy to report that I finally exposed myself enough to Overwatch, so that I keep the objective in mind in stressful situations. I am very proud of the footage in the background right now. I'm also still learning lots of little things. Wait, can you jump up here? Oh, you can! Or how I didn't know sneaking still makes slight sounds these days. And it's fun. I wish I could document my journey more thoroughly, even if it ends up in failure. But I was also unprepared on the content creation side of things. Actually uploading some highlights, more reflections, both live and in retrospect. Unfortunately, this will probably fall even more by the wayside as I try to reach my goal, but I'm storing all the recordings and I'm looking forward to processing some of that into videos once the challenge concluded. Thanks for watching.